Greetings. I'm just jumping on to talk a little bit about the recent stuff that's been in the news about Minneapolis. I live in Minneapolis. I have lived in Minneapolis for a really long time, and I love my city. My family moved us to northern Minnesota when I was like 10, and we lived there for a while, and so we would come, when we would come to Minneapolis every so often. So I know Minneapolis and I know Minnesota really, really, really well. And I want to just share, I want to pick this apart, this whole explosion with this Nick Shirley YouTube video. I want to talk about the way I mean, the importance of independent journalism, but also understanding that we need to bring, keep the idea that this needs to be a professional career, and certain credentials need to be met when it comes to mass influence. YouTube is a wonderful tool. This social media, people being able to share what they think, has been a wonderful thing, but it's a double-edged sword. There's consequences to this vigilante, everybody's a journalist. I'm not a journalist. My direction that I'm going is the medical field. That's my aptitude. I'm realizing that's where, but I need to go to school. There's things that I need to learn. I can't just jump in there and start treating patients. And so there's a value to higher education. And I worry that, I don't know what it is. So I'm not liberal, I'm not conservative. I always talk about this because people are so conditioned with this groupthink to want to, what side are you on? Are you red or blue? I cannot stand that we're still doing this. And it's like there are people who've seen through it, but there's a lot of people who have not seen through it. And so, yeah, there's a value to higher education. And this new version of conservatism, it doesn't even have a name yet, because there's like the neocons, and that's like that, like the Bush conservatives, I think that's what it is. But then there's like this new version of conservatism that kind of brought the conspiracy theory world, which I'm like an OG conspiracy theorist, okay? But like this is a new version. It's like a mutant version of the original conspiracy theorists. And so it's like merged, kind of like a flavor of the neocon with this conservatism, and now it's going, I believe, in this direction of the new patriarchal conservative nationalism, which we need to be careful. We really need to be careful with this, guys. So I want to talk a little bit about these vigilante journalists, okay? So Candace Owens, as far as I'm aware, does she have a college degree? She did like a couple years towards a journalism degree, but didn't finish. Okay, so she has a little bit of education in that department, but didn't go anywhere near where she needed to be to finish that education. We have, and forgive me, God rest his soul, Charlie Kirk, he had no degree, okay? And then we have this Nick Shirley guy who did this video on the Somali daycares. No degree. People without education are plenty smart. People without formal education, higher education, can have just as much, if not more, wisdom than people without it. But there's a value to this educational system that gives you the tools to be able to adequately function in the direction, the career direction, the effect on society that you want to have. It's extremely important. There's a base set of tools that you need to have to operate functionally. In the world of psychology and mental health diagnoses, everybody's a psychologist now with YouTube. There's very specific criteria for certain diagnoses. Oh, that person must be bipolar. There could be a whole bunch of different things going on with that person. But because you see a little bit of mania or a little bit of depression, you see what I'm saying? There's so much detail. I mean, 4 years of higher education, let alone, the 6 years for a master's, or the 8 years for, you know, a PhD plus sometimes. There's so much education that goes into that. And no, it's not programming. See, I'm all about bringing free thinking, um, critical thinking into having that higher education if you want to be one of those uh, people who are highly influential. And here's what worries me about people like Nick Shirley, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, that whole crew, is they have a lot of influence. I believe that, you know, I'm a full-on free speech. I'm not about censorship at all, you know. I'm all right with consequences when people say retarded things, but well, that's not PC to say retarded. Sorry, whatever. But um, they have a lot of influence, and they don't have the proper base to do journalism in an ethical way. So I understand the problem that the corporate political influence on media has created. It's created mass distrust among the American people and people all across the world, because there has been so much sneaky in the background, you know, mastery, whatever, puppetry with corporate and political interests, the billionaire class and higher millionaire class, the negative elites, whatever you want to call it, manipulating the media. And so it's created this environment where people are very, very, very distrustful of higher academia and people with money. Valid. I understand that distrust. I'm a part of that. You know, I don't trust that either. But the thing is we can't, I'm going to say it, friends, we can't throw the baby away with the bathwater. There are reputable independent journalists. Oh my gosh, I wish I could remember his name. Matt Taibbi, Barry Weiss. She doesn't have a journalism degree, but she has a degree in history. You know, and there's other ones. Educated people, they have a solid toolbox to adequately execute journalism in an ethical, balanced way. So the Nick Shirley thing. I watched the video. I watched the local news in my city. I love my city. I used to live downtown. And actually, the biggest problem that we have as far as crime and riffraff in the city is the homeless population. And those people are not immigrants, those are Americans. And I believe that they need help. I don't know how to help them. It's a whole huge mess. The biggest thing I've seen is the homeless encampments that have been a problem. But actually, Mayor Frey is doing a pretty good job. They're taking care of that. So it hasn't been the immigrants in my city. I know Minneapolis well. Minneapolis is in my heart. I don't think I'll ever leave at this point. It's a beautiful city, and Minnesota is a wonderful state. We have, again, I'm not Democrat or Republican. I am pro-vaccine choice. I am pro greater restrictions on abortion. Do you see how it's not like, it doesn't make sense? I don't fit into one box or the other. But one thing that I really appreciate about my state is the way that it has created a safety net for the poorest of our population. Okay, there's a lot of wealth in Minnesota. Minneapolis has a lot of wealth, believe me. But Minneapolis and Minnesota is also a state that looks out for the poorest. Okay? You know, the social programs are wonderful, and it's not destroying our state, it's benefiting it. People who are poor, most of them are just trying to get by. They're decent people, they're just trying to take care of their families. Are some of them exploiting the system? Absolutely. Well, also in the highest echelons of society, we have politicians and CEOs exploiting the system all the time. Why has this Nick Shirley Somali daycare situation gotten so much attention in the media? It's because Donald Trump's racist ass rhetoric. Okay? Don't hate me. Yeah, I voted for Trump because I wanted the elites to be taken down, but now I'm realizing, oh, maybe he's actually one of them. The things that he says are racist. They are white nationalist. They are creating problems for people of different ethnicities and immigrants. Maduro, I think he was probably a pretty bad dude. And that whole thing, I'm like, I don't know. I'm still on the fence. I'm like, was this the right choice? Wasn't it? I don't know. But that's a whole other discussion. And so this Nick Shirley guy, I was born in Utah. He's from Utah. And he just went around. There probably is some fraud when it comes to the daycare in the Somali community. But the amount of fraud. Okay, let's talk about Florida. What did they call it? I wrote it down because I couldn't remember. Florida Shuffle. Okay, this was a big time scheme with recovering addicts. It's super sad. The exploitation of the Medicare and recovering addicts. So these halfway houses were set up all over Florida. And they were taking money from, I believe, Medicare. It might have been state money too. Florida is not very good about taking care of its poor people. Okay, I've been to Florida many times. But somehow these halfway houses were getting either state funding or federal funding to take care of these recovering addicts. They don't call them, they call them sober homes, but halfway house is like the colloquial term. People getting out of rehab who need a place to stay to get on their feet and stay away from drugs. Well, guess what? These homes were taking the money. They were not taking care of the people like they were supposed to be. And oftentimes these homes like were also selling there was like drug trafficking going on in this situation. So this was a huge, nasty, icky version of tax fraud, essentially. And we really didn't hear that much about it on the news. A lot of politicians have been caught doing different kinds, of tax fraud. Or let's see, I wrote them down. Sheila Sher Phyllis McCormick, Congress. There was some kind of fraud with her. George Santos, Republican. He was a congressperson, and there was wire fraud, money laundering. He was found with all kinds of dirty stuff. You have Jose Huizar, Democrat, LA City Council, racketeering, tax evasion, bribery. Donald Trump has, like him or hate him, whatever, fact, fiction, he wasn't a dirty businessman. Okay, he's a billionaire. I'm sure that, we know that there was the Trump University. There's all this kind of, there was one instance where he didn't pay off contractors, where he was obligated to pay them off. He did all kinds of dirty shit. So I raised my kids here. And they have a wonderful program in Minnesota for young kids. It's called ECFE, Early Childhood Family Education, and that's state funded. And it's for everyone. They have income-based programs too. And it was a wonderful experience to be able to take my kids to ECFE. And I was there with a lot of different immigrants, Somali immigrants. I got to know these people. I'm talking to these families. Most of them are good people who came here so that they can raise their kids in peace. Okay, there's a small percentage. Amy Bach, the Feeding Our Future Fund, she was an American. Okay, she was the helm of that whole scheme. So it's like, the Nick, to get back to the Nick Shirley thing, there has been a few cases of daycare fraud as far as funding. Of those he went to like 13 daycares or whatever. All of those were found to be credible. There was one where the kids weren't there. That's because they were closed that day. So those particular daycares were not involved with the fraud, but it does happen. I could be incorrect on that, but I did a little bit of reading just before getting on here, and I watched my local KARE 11 News. And those are local journalists. And so the problem with the explosion of that little YouTuber, no credentials for ethical execution of journalism, exploding and having all of this influence on people who are vulnerable right now because of the exploitation from the elites on the media system. They're distrustful. We have to be careful. We have to remember that there has to be standards for the journalism that we consume. Now, I listen to NPR because I like to listen to the BBC News, and sometimes they have good shows on. Sometimes I'll hear stuff that's blatant manipulation, and it's clearly the corporate influence bleeding through, and it irritates me, and I'll turn it off in that moment. But do you see what I'm saying? We need to foster critical thinking, because people will just run with, Nick Shirley, oh my God, the Somalis are bad. We need to get rid of the Somalis. I am concerned with the anti-immigration rhetoric from the Trump administration. These people are mostly good people. In Minnesota, most of the crimes committed are American-born citizens. white American-born citizens. It's not the immigrants that are causing all of the crime in Minnesota. It's just being focused on, hyper-focused on. Now, I understand the whole cracking down on the drug and human trafficking across the border, the fentanyl trafficking between China and the US. Yes, we need to take that down, but we cannot start hating on immigrants. This is a bad direction that needs to be noticed, and we need to start bringing in our critical thinking skills, and we need to bring a better standard for journalism. The Candace Owens crap with the Macron, I was watching this and I'm just like, this is madness. This is absolute madness. If you, oh boy, there's a term in psychology. Oh, come on. I just learned it and I forgot it. But it's the idea that our human brains have a tendency to seek out information that confirms our biases. And then it'll be there and you'll see it and it'll say, wow, you'll say, oh my gosh, look at that. The evidence is right there. So I think that's what was going on with plus, regardless, it's none of Candace Owens' goddamn business whether Brigitte Macron is, male born female or not. It's not her business. Okay. What would be the public's business is, tax fraud, misuse of government money, abuse, things like that would be the public's business, but not a person's gender. It really isn't. I was so disgusted with that. It really, Candace Owens is another one who has built her career, her money-making system on trolling other people. It's not journalism, it's trolling. And it's sensationalism, and it's bringing in a lot of money. Nick Shirley is another one of those people. They're using baseless or without that foundation of proper journalism execution to find sensational ideas, blow them up, get views, and get money. Okay? Charlie Kirk was another one. The thing that used to bother me about the Charlie Kirk, when he would go to the woke liberal education, we need higher education. It has a very important place in society. He would go to these college campuses. He didn't have any degree. He was older than these kids most of the time, towards the later end of when he was doing the Turning Point or whatever. And he would cherry pick. He would pick the ones that had the weakest arguments to put on his channel. And he would completely disregard the ones who just creamed him in that debate. So it's all smoke and mirrors. We have to please be discerning with the media you consume. Absolutely, mass elite, negative elite, corporate political influence on the media. Hell yeah, it's been a nightmare, but we need to be careful. This is like a very important phase in society where we're seeing through that, but then there's that susceptibility of the population who hasn't built their own critical thinking skills up enough to go in that other direction with these people who have no credentials and shouldn't be doing journalism. There we have it. I think I've said everything I want to say on this. I love my city. Minneapolis is a good city. I kind of feel bad for Tim Walz with all this because I think Kamala Harris was a part of the negative elites. I think she was probably a puppet. Maybe she was MK Ultra. I don't know. I don't think Tim Walz was one of them. I think he's just a good guy. I don't know, man. It's a mess. Critical thinking, value higher education. Those two things together, brilliant. You have so much power with that. There is so much danger in that lack of critical thinking and people with a lack of proper education in the arena that they're getting big in. You know what I'm saying? All right. I hope you have a wonderful day. Okay? Love and light of the one infinite creator to you. Bye for now, my friend.